Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into what if Goku was born as the legendary Super Saiyan instead of Broly. The legendary Super Saiyan is absolutely broken, infinite power growth, reality-warping energy and strength that makes regular Super Saiyans look pathetic. Broly casually destroyed dimensions and overpowered multiple Super Saiyans effortlessly. So we thought, what if we gave this insane power to someone with Goku's pure heart? This epic story follows Goku from a baby whose cries break reality to a cosmic warrior fighting universal threats while keeping his compassion intact. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for more Dragon Ball what-ifs. Alright, let's dive in. The incubation chamber hummed with an energy that made the technicians nervous. Inside the artificial womb, a newborn Saiyan infant floated in biofluid, his tiny fists clenched, his face contorted in what appeared to be perpetual rage. But it wasn't the baby's expression that concerned the medical staff, it was the readings on their scouters. "This can't be right," muttered Tech Sergeant Borgos, tapping his scouter repeatedly. The device flickered between impossibly high numbers before displaying an error message. The power level keeps fluctuating. One moment it reads 2, the next it's, well, the scouter can't even process it. His partner, a grizzled Saiyan warrior named Tora, leaned closer to the chamber. The infant's crying created visible ripples in the biofluid and hairline cracks began forming along the reinforced glass. "Get King Vegeta, now!" The baby's name was Kakarot, son of Bardock, and he was about to change the course of universal history. Deep within the royal palace of planet Vegeta, King Vegeta sat upon his throne, reviewing casualty reports from the latest campaign against the Tuffles. His brooding was interrupted by the hurried footsteps of his personal guard. "My king," the guard panted, dropping to one knee, "there's a situation in the birthing ward. They're requesting your immediate presence." King Vegeta's eyes narrowed. In Saiyan society, only two things required the king's attention in the birthing ward: the birth of a potential elite warrior or the birth of something dangerous. Given the guard's pale complexion, he suspected the latter. The walk to the medical facility took mere minutes, but King Vegeta could feel the disturbance in the air before he even arrived. A low, thrumming energy seemed to emanate from the building itself, causing his royal scouter to flicker intermittently. Other Saiyans in the area appeared agitated, their natural warrior instincts responding to an unknown threat. "Report," King Vegeta commanded as he entered the observation chamber. Tech Sergeant Borgos stepped forward, his usual confidence replaced by visible anxiety. "My lord, the infant designated Kakarot, son of Bardock, exhibits anomalous energy patterns. His power level is completely unstable. We've recorded readings from 2 all the way up to, show me the data." Borgos activated the main display, and King Vegeta watched in growing alarm as the power readings fluctuated wildly. For brief moments, the numbers climbed beyond anything he had ever seen, beyond even his own power level, beyond Prince Vegeta's unprecedented strength. "How long has this been occurring?" "Since birth, my lord." "The child hasn't stopped crying, and each outburst seems to generate more energy. We've already had to replace the incubation chamber twice. The first 2, well, they shattered." King Vegeta studied the infant through the reinforced viewing window. Kakarot appeared normal enough, typical low-class Saiyan features, the wild black hair, the tail, but something in the child's aura felt fundamentally different, almost primordial. "Summon the Royal Archive Keeper," King Vegeta ordered. Immediately, while they waited, the infant's cries grew louder and the energy readings spiked again. This time, the vibrations were strong enough to crack the viewing window. Several attending Saiyans instinctively stepped back, their hands moving toward their weapons, a reflexive response to a threat they couldn't understand. The Archive Keeper arrived within minutes, an ancient Saiyan whose knowledge of their race's history was unparalleled. He took one look at the displays and his weathered face went pale. "My king," he whispered, "if these readings are accurate, this child may be the legendary Super Saiyan." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Every Saiyan present knew the legend, a warrior born once every 1,000 years, possessing power so immense it defied comprehension. The last legendary Super Saiyan had reportedly destroyed entire star systems in fits of rage. "That's impossible," King Vegeta said, but his voice lacked conviction. The legend speaks of a warrior with an initial power level of 10,000. This child's base reading is only 2. The legend also speaks of power that cannot be measured by conventional means, the archive keeper replied. Power that grows with the warrior's emotions, particularly rage. Look at the pattern, my lord. Every time the child cries, every time he experiences distress, the energy spikes exponentially. As if summoned by their words, Kakarot's cries intensified. The energy readings climbed beyond the scouter's capacity to measure, and the reinforced walls of the medical facility began to groan under the pressure. Emergency alarms started blaring throughout the building. Evacuate the facility, King Vegeta commanded. Clear a 2-kilometer radius. My lord, Borgos protested. What about the infant? King Vegeta's hand moved to his weapon. The decision before him was clear: eliminate the potential threat to his rule and possibly to the entire planet, or risk the emergence of a power that could render his authority meaningless. My lord, a new voice interrupted his dark thoughts. Bardock, Kakarot's father, burst into the observation chamber, his battle-scarred armor still smoking from recent combat. I came as soon as I heard. Where is my son? The low-class warrior's eyes immediately found the incubation chamber, and his expression shifted from concern to awe to terror as he witnessed the energy readings for himself. Bardock, King Vegeta said slowly, your son may be the most dangerous being ever born on this planet. He's just a baby, Bardock replied, but his voice wavered as another energy spike cracked the floor beneath their feet. He's a potential planet killer, King Vegeta countered. And as king, it's my responsibility to what? Bardock's hand moved to his weapon. Kill an infant because you're afraid of what he might become. The tension in the room escalated as other Saiyans began choosing sides. Some moved to support their king, while others, veterans who had served alongside Bardock, positioned themselves behind the concerned father. This isn't about fear, King Vegeta snarled. This is about survival. If that child is truly the legendary Super Saiyan, his power will eventually become uncontrollable. He'll destroy everything, including us. Then we teach him control, Bardock shot back. We guide him, train him, help him master his abilities instead of murdering him in his crib. Another surge of energy from Kakarot punctuated their argument, this one strong enough to shatter the viewing window completely. Biofluid began leaking from the damaged incubation chamber, and the infant's cries became even more distressed. The chamber's failing, Borgos reported unnecessarily. If the containment system collapses completely, King Vegeta made his decision. Drawing his weapon, he stepped toward the compromised chamber. I won't allow a potential monster to threaten my rule or my people. Bardock moved to intercept him, but before either warrior could act, a new voice cut through the chaos. Stop! Jin, Bardock's mate and Kakarot's mother, entered the chamber with quiet authority. Unlike most Saiyan women, she possessed a gentle nature that commanded respect rather than demanded it. Both of you stop! She moved directly to the failing incubation chamber, ignoring the dangerous energy fluctuations, and placed her hands against the cracked glass. Remarkably, Kakarot's cries began to subside and the power readings started to stabilize. He's responding to emotional distress, she observed calmly. Our fear, our anger, our aggression, he's feeding off it, amplifying it. Look, the displays confirmed her assessment. As the adults in the room calmed themselves, the infant's power levels, while still astronomical, became more stable. He's not a monster, Jin continued, her voice gentle but firm. He's a child who's overwhelmed by his own abilities and by our reactions to him. If we approach this with wisdom instead of fear. King Vegeta lowered his weapon, but his expression remained troubled. Even if you're right, Jin, the risks are enormous. One uncontrolled outburst could level the capital city. And what happens as he grows older? What happens when he learns to walk, to fight, to truly feel rage? Then we make sure he never has reason for uncontrolled rage, Bardock said, understanding dawning in his eyes. We raise him away from here, somewhere safe, somewhere peaceful. Exile, King Vegeta considered the option. That might work, but where? Frieza's forces monitor most inhabited worlds, and if they detect readings like these. I know a place, Bardock said quietly. A primitive world called Earth. Low technology, no advanced scouting systems. The inhabitants are weak but not warlike. If we send him there as an infant, he could learn to control his power without threatening anyone. The archive keeper stepped forward. The legends speak of the legendary Super Saiyan either becoming the ultimate destroyer or the ultimate protector. Perhaps the environment in which he's raised determines which path he takes. King Vegeta studied the now quiet infant. Kakarot had fallen asleep, his tiny face peaceful, his power levels finally stable. The decision wasn't easy. Exiling potentially the most powerful Saiyan ever born went against every instinct of their warrior culture. But the alternative was too dangerous to contemplate. "Very well," he said finally. "Prepare a space pod immediately. The child will be sent to Earth within the hour." "My lord," Borgos interjected, "what about his mission parameters?" "Standard infant warriors are programmed to eliminate the planet's dominant species." "No programming," King Vegeta decided. "No mission objectives. We can't risk his legendary power being triggered by combat scenarios. Let him land safely and adapt naturally." Bardock felt a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Saving his son's life meant never seeing him again, never training him in Saiyan ways, never knowing what kind of warrior or person he would become. "There's something else," the archive keeper added grimly. "If Lord Frieza's forces detect these energy readings, they may investigate. The legend of the legendary Super Saiyan is known throughout the galaxy. If Frieza believes such a warrior exists..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone present understood the implications. Frieza's paranoia about Super Saiyans was already well documented. A legendary Super Saiyan would be an existential threat to his entire empire. "Then we ensure this information doesn't leave this room," King Vegeta declared. As far as official records are concerned, Kakarot was a standard low-class warrior infant who died during birth complications. "Any Saiyan who speaks of what happened here will answer to me personally." The threat was clear, and everyone nodded their understanding. Within the hour, little Kakarot was placed in a specially modified space pod, equipped with extended life support and educational programs designed to help him integrate into Earth society rather than conquer it. As the pod launched into space, Bardock watched from the observation deck, his hand pressed against the window. "Survive, my son," he whispered. "Grow strong, but grow wise. The universe may depend on it." Unknown to any of them, Frieza's deep space monitoring stations had indeed detected the massive energy signatures emanating from planet Vegeta. Even now, the galactic tyrant was reviewing the data with growing concern and paranoia. "Legendary Super Saiyan energy patterns," his chief scientist reported. "The readings match historical data from our archives about the previous legendary warrior who appeared a millennium ago." Frieza's eyes narrowed as he studied the reports. He had already been planning planet Vegeta's destruction to prevent the emergence of a Super Saiyan. Now, with confirmation that a legendary Super Saiyan had been born, that plan became an absolute priority. "Prepare the death ball," Frieza commanded. "Planet Vegeta dies tomorrow." 3 days later, as Kakarot's pod hurtled through space toward Earth, planet Vegeta was nothing but cosmic dust. Bardock's final vision had come true, but with a cruel twist. His son, the very being whose existence had prompted Frieza's decisive action, was now the last hope for Saiyan vengeance. But that vengeance would have to wait. For now, there was only a sleeping infant, traveling toward a world that would either nurture his gentle nature or awaken his legendary rage. The pod's navigation system locked onto Earth's coordinates. Estimated time to arrival: 11 months. The mountains of Earth had seen many strange things over the centuries, but nothing quite like the meteor that crashed into Mount Paozu on a clear spring morning. The impact crater was surprisingly small for such a spectacular light show, and the object at its center was clearly artificial, a spherical pod covered in strange symbols and emitting a faint humming sound. Grandpa Gohan had been gathering herbs when the sky lit up. As a martial artist trained by the legendary Master Roshi, his curiosity was stronger than his caution. He made his way to the crash site, expecting to find perhaps a military satellite or experimental aircraft. Instead, he found a baby. The pod had opened automatically upon landing, revealing a small infant with wild black hair and a brown, furry tail. The child was awake, looking around with alert, dark eyes, but he wasn't crying. In fact, he seemed remarkably calm for someone who had just survived a journey through space. "Well, I'll be," Gohan murmured, carefully lifting the baby from the pod. "Where did you come from, little one?" As if in response, the infant gurgled and reached up toward Gohan's face with tiny hands. The martial artist felt an immediate connection to the child. There was something pure and innocent in those dark eyes, but also something else. A depth of spirit that seemed almost too mature for such a young being. "You can't stay out here alone," Gohan decided, gathering the baby closer. "I suppose you'll be coming home with me." The journey back to his small house took the better part of an hour, and during that time, Gohan began to notice unusual things about his foundling. The child was remarkably heavy for his size, as if his bones and muscles were far denser than normal. His grip was surprisingly strong, and his eyes seemed to track movements with unusual focus. But it was that night, as Gohan prepared a makeshift crib, that he discovered just how unusual his new ward truly was. The baby had been sleeping peacefully when something, perhaps a nightmare, perhaps a memory, caused him distress. His small face contorted, his tiny fists clenched, and suddenly the entire house began to shake. Gohan rushed to the crib, expecting to find the child ill or injured. Instead, he discovered that the wooden floor around the crib had cracked, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. The baby's crying was unlike anything he had ever heard, not just loud, but somehow resonant, as if it carried power beyond mere sound. "Easy there, little one," Gohan said softly, reaching down to comfort the child. The moment his hands touched the baby, the shaking stopped, the energy dissipated, and the infant calmed immediately. Over the following weeks, similar incidents occurred with increasing frequency. The baby, whom Gohan had named Goku, meaning aware of emptiness, would have episodes of distress that resulted in inexplicable phenomena. Dishes would rattle, the ground would tremble, and animals for miles around would flee in apparent terror. Gohan began keeping detailed notes of these incidents, trying to find patterns. The episodes seemed triggered by strong emotions, hunger, loneliness, or especially the full moon. But unlike the great ape transformations described in ancient martial arts texts, Goku never physically changed. Instead, his power seemed to manifest as pure energy, raw and unfocused but devastatingly strong. "You're not a normal child, are you?" Gohan asked during one of their morning training sessions. He had started teaching Goku basic martial arts as soon as the boy could walk, hoping that discipline might help him control whatever power lay dormant within him. Goku, now 3 years old, paused in his kata practice. His power was already far beyond what any human child should possess, but he seemed genuinely unaware of how unusual he was. "What's normal, Grandpa?" the boy asked with innocent curiosity. Gohan smiled sadly. "Normal children don't leave craters when they have tantrums, my boy." It was true. The area around their home was becoming increasingly scarred by the evidence of Goku's power. Deep gouges in the earth where his energy had been particularly intense, trees stripped of their leaves by invisible force waves, and several unfortunate boulders that had been reduced to gravel during especially dramatic episodes. "I don't mean to," Goku said, his voice small and apologetic. "It just happens, like when I'm really mad or scared, something inside me wants to come out." Gohan knelt down to his adopted grandson's level. "That's something inside you, it's very strong, isn't it?" Goku nodded, his dark eyes troubled. "Sometimes I dream about it, it's like there's another me but bigger and scarier. And it's really, really angry about something." The description sent chills down Gohan's spine. He had begun researching ancient texts, looking for any reference to beings with Goku's particular characteristics. What he had found in the oldest scrolls was deeply troubling, references to legendary demons, whose power could reshape the world, beings of such strength that they existed in a constant state of internal war between their destructive nature and their human consciousness. "Goku," Gohan said carefully, "I need you to promise me something. No matter how angry or scared you get, no matter what happens, you must never let that other part of you take control. Do you understand?" "I'll try, Grandpa," Goku promised, "but sometimes it's really hard to stop." Their conversation was interrupted by a distant rumbling. Looking toward the horizon, they could see smoke rising from the direction of the nearest village. Something was wrong. "Stay here," Gohan commanded, but Goku was already following him down the mountain path. The boy's natural protective instincts had been evident from an early age. Whenever he sensed danger or injustice, he became agitated, and that agitation inevitably led to his power threatening to surface. They arrived at the village to find chaos. A gang of bandits was terrorizing the inhabitants, their leader, a massive man with cybernetic enhancements, demanding tribute that the poor farming community couldn't afford. "Please," the village elder begged, "we've already given you everything we can spare. Our children are going hungry." "Not my problem," the bandit leader growled, raising his weapon. "Pay up or we start burning houses." Gohan stepped forward, his martial arts training evident in his stance. "That's enough. Leave these people alone," the bandit leader laughed. "Old man, you picked the wrong fight." The confrontation that followed was brief but educational. Gohan's skills were formidable, easily handling the rank-and-file bandits. But their leader's cybernetic enhancements made him a more serious threat. And when the villain managed to land a solid hit on the elderly martial artist, Goku saw his beloved grandfather fall to his knees, blood streaming from a head wound. "Grandpa!" Goku screamed, and in that moment, something fundamental shifted within him. The air around the boy began to shimmer and distort. His small frame seemed to grow larger, not physically, but in presence, as if he were casting a shadow far bigger than his actual body. His dark eyes began to glow with an inner light, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made the ground beneath their feet vibrate. "You hurt Grandpa," Goku said, his child's voice somehow carrying the weight of an adult's rage. "I don't like people who hurt Grandpa." The bandit leader's cybernetic sensors immediately began registering impossible readings. His threat assessment systems, designed to evaluate combat opponents, started displaying error messages as they tried to process the energy emanating from the small child. "What the hell?" he began, but his words were cut off as Goku simply looked at him. The look was enough. An invisible wave of force erupted from the boy, not directed or controlled, simply the natural expression of his rage. The bandit leader was lifted from his feet and hurled backward with such violence that he disappeared over the horizon, his trajectory carrying him far beyond the village limits. His remaining followers fled in terror, but Goku's attention had already shifted back to his injured grandfather. As quickly as it had manifested, the power receded, leaving only a frightened child kneeling beside the man who had raised him. "Grandpa, are you okay?" Goku asked, his voice normal again, tears streaming down his face. Gohan struggled to his feet, acutely aware that he had just witnessed something that defied all rational explanation. The boy's power, when triggered by genuine emotion, was beyond anything he had imagined possible. "I'm fine, Goku," he said gently, though his head was still ringing from the blow. "But we need to talk about what just happened." The village elder approached cautiously, his eyes wide with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "Master Gohan, what is that child?" It was a question that would haunt both Gohan and Goku for years to come. As they made their way back up the mountain, Gohan realized that simply teaching the boy martial arts would not be enough. Goku needed to learn not just how to fight, but how to exist with power that could potentially threaten the world itself. "Goku," he said as they walked, "from now on, our training is going to be different. Harder. You need to learn not just how to use your strength, but how to control it absolutely." "Will it help me protect people better?" Goku asked. "Yes," Gohan replied, though privately he wondered if protection or destruction would ultimately prove to be Goku's destiny. "But more importantly, it will help you protect yourself from your own power." That night, as Goku slept, Gohan sat by the window and studied the stars. Somewhere out there, he was certain, lay the answers to his grandson's mysterious origins. But those answers would have to wait. For now, there was only the daily challenge of raising a child whose innocent heart housed the potential for limitless destruction. In his crib, Goku stirred restlessly, his dreams filled with visions of a green-haired warrior standing amidst the ruins of countless worlds, laughing with savage joy at the devastation around him. But in the dream, the warrior's face was his own. The legendary power slumbered, but it was learning, growing, waiting for the day when Goku's pure heart might no longer be enough to contain it. The meteorite that crashed into Mount Paozu didn't just bring an alien infant to Earth. It brought a slumbering apocalypse wrapped in innocent flesh. Grandpa Gohan had expected many things when he decided to raise the strange child he found in the crater, but preparing for the potential destruction of civilization had not been among them. For the first few years, Kakarot, whom Gohan had renamed Goku, seemed like any other energetic boy, albeit one with an unusual appetite and surprising durability. The tale was strange, certainly, but the child's pure heart and eager willingness to learn martial arts made him a joy to raise. It wasn't until Goku turned 7 that the true nature of his power began to manifest in ways that shattered Gohan's understanding of what was possible. The first major incident occurred during what should have been a routine training session. Goku had been practicing the Kamehameha wave technique he'd learned from watching Master Roshi on television, and Gohan was offering gentle corrections to his form. The exercise was meant to teach control and focus, basic principles that every martial artist needed to master. Remember, Goku, Gohan instructed patiently, the Kamehameha isn't about raw power. It's about bringing your Kai into perfect harmony, and his words were cut off as Goku's practice beam, which should have been barely visible, erupted from his small hands with the force of a solar flare. The energy wave didn't just strike the target boulder Gohan had selected. It vaporized it completely, along with the mountainside behind it, the valley beyond that, and a considerable portion of the horizon. The blast carved a perfectly straight channel through the landscape that stretched beyond the curve of the earth itself. Goku blinked in confusion at the devastation, his young mind unable to process what he had just done. "Grandpa, I think I used too much power." Gohan stared at the kilometer-wide trench his grandson had just carved through multiple mountain ranges with a technique the boy had learned from watching television. His hands trembled as he realized that what he had dismissed as unusual strength was actually something far more dangerous. The child wasn't just gifted, he was carrying power that belonged in the realm of gods and demons. "Goku," Gohan said carefully, his voice steady despite the terror flooding through him, "I want you to promise me something very important. From now on, you must never use your full strength unless someone's life is in immediate danger. Do you understand?" "But Grandpa," Goku protested with the innocent logic of childhood, "if I don't practice using my full strength, how will I get better at controlling it?" The question revealed a wisdom that belied the boy's age, but also highlighted the impossible nature of their situation. How could someone learn to control power that could accidentally reshape continents? How could a child's training exercises coexist with civilization when each mistake might level cities? Gohan's solution was to relocate their training to the most remote areas he could find, regions so isolated that Goku's power fluctuations wouldn't threaten populated areas. But even this precaution proved insufficient when the boy's emotions became involved. During a particularly intense meditation session designed to help Goku explore his inner Kai, something unexpected happened. "I can feel it, Grandpa," Goku said, his voice taking on an eerie quality as he sat in lotus position. "There's something else inside me. It's like another person but bigger and angrier." "What does this other person want?" Gohan asked, though every instinct told him he didn't want to know the answer. Goku's eyes snapped open, and for a brief moment they blazed with green light that seemed to pierce through reality itself. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made the ground beneath them vibrate. "It wants everything to burn," he said in a tone that no 7-year-old should have been capable of producing. "It wants to tear down the sky and make the earth scream. It thinks weakness should be destroyed and only strength should survive." The moment passed, and Goku's eyes returned to normal, leaving him looking confused and frightened by his own words. But Gohan had heard enough to understand that they were dealing with something beyond any earthly martial arts tradition. The boy wasn't just powerful, he was inhabited by some kind of spiritual force that viewed destruction as a natural and desirable state. From that day forward, their training took on a desperate edge. Gohan began researching every ancient text he could find, seeking techniques not for increasing power but for binding and controlling it. He taught Goku meditation practices from Buddhist monks, restraint techniques from Taoist masters, and spiritual disciplines from Hindu mystics. The goal wasn't to make the boy stronger, it was to build mental and spiritual barriers that could contain whatever legendary force was growing within him. The breakthrough came when Goku was 9, during their preparation for something Gohan had never imagined he would consider, entering the World Martial Arts Tournament. The decision hadn't been made lightly. Goku needed to test himself against other martial artists, but more importantly, Gohan needed to understand how the boy's power would react to genuine combat situations. "But what if I hurt someone?" Goku asked, voicing the concern that had been haunting both of them for years. "That's why we've been working so hard on your control," Gohan replied, though privately he shared the same fear. "Remember the meditation techniques. Remember the breathing exercises. And most importantly, remember that true strength isn't about defeating your opponents, it's about protecting the people you care about." The 21st World Martial Arts Tournament proved to be a revelation in ways neither of them had anticipated. Goku's first opponent, a martial artist named Nam who was fighting to earn money for his drought-stricken village, provided the perfect test of the boy's control. Nam was skilled and desperate, pushing Goku to fight seriously without triggering the homicidal rage that lurked beneath his gentle nature. The match proceeded normally until Nam, in a burst of desperation, attempted to use a technique called the cross-arm dive, a potentially lethal aerial attack that put the older fighter's life at risk if it failed. Watching his opponent throw himself into danger awakened something protective in Goku's nature, and he instinctively reached out to catch Nam safely rather than simply dodging the attack. The gesture of mercy should have been simple, but Goku's emotional state caused his power to fluctuate unpredictably. His hand, moving at what should have been normal speed, struck Nam's descending form with enough force to send the older fighter flying clear out of the tournament grounds. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Nam's unconscious body disappeared over the horizon, leaving a contrail in the atmosphere like a rocket launch. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the tournament commentator after a long pause, I believe we have our winner." Goku stood in the center of the ring, staring at his hand in horror. He had tried to be gentle, had consciously held back his strength, but the legendary power flowing through his veins made gentle a relative concept that bore no resemblance to normal human limitations. In the audience, Master Roshi adjusted his sunglasses and frowned. He had entered the tournament disguised as Jackie Chun specifically to test this unusual young fighter, but what he had just witnessed went beyond mere martial arts prodigy. The energy signature emanating from the boy was unlike anything he had encountered in his 3 centuries of life. Raw, primal, and carrying undertones of something that made his ancient soul shiver with recognition. "Extraordinary," Roshi murmured to himself. "The boy fights like someone carrying the weight of apocalypse in his fists." Goku's next few matches proceeded more smoothly as he learned to compensate for the tournament environment, but each victory came with increasingly obvious demonstrations of power that defied explanation. His fight with Bacterian ended when his opponent's attempted chokehold was broken by what appeared to be an involuntary Kai release that shattered the wrestling hold and sent the larger man sliding across the ring despite Goku exerting no conscious effort. The match against Yamcha provided the first real glimpse of what lay beneath Goku's controlled exterior. The Desert Bandit's Wolf Fang Fist technique, delivered with genuine killing intent, triggered Goku's protective instincts in a way that no previous challenge had managed. For a brief moment, as Yamcha's claws descended toward his face, Goku's eyes flashed green and his Kai signature spiked to levels that made the tournament's power measuring devices overload and catch fire. Yamcha's attack never landed. Instead, the bandit found himself frozen in midair, held motionless by pressure waves emanating from Goku's body. The boy's hair had gained a subtle green tint, and when he spoke, his voice carried the echo of cosmic forces beyond human comprehension. "I don't want to hurt you," Goku said, but the words carried a subtext of barely contained destruction that made every fighter in the building instinctively step backward. "Please don't make me hurt you." Yamcha, despite his reputation as a fearless desert warrior, found himself nodding frantically in agreement. Whatever he was facing, it wasn't a normal martial artist. It was something wearing the shape of a child but carrying power that felt older than civilization itself. The moment passed, and Goku returned to his normal, cheerful demeanor, apparently unaware of the cosmic horror he had briefly unleashed. But Master Roshi had seen enough to understand that this tournament was no longer about crowning a martial arts champion. It was about preventing a potential catastrophe. Interesting, Roshi mused as he prepared for his own semi-final match against the mysterious boy. I wonder if the lad even realizes what he's becoming. The Jackie Chun vs. Goku match became the most important fight of Master Roshi's 300-year life, though the audience would never understand the true stakes involved. This wasn't about tournament victory, it was about testing whether the legendary power growing within the boy could be guided toward protection rather than destruction. Roshi's strategy was subtle but desperate. Rather than trying to defeat Goku through superior technique, he used his centuries of experience to create emotional scenarios that would reveal the boy's true nature. He feigned injury to test Goku's mercy, pretended to be overwhelmed to gauge his restraint, and even staged moments of apparent helplessness to see if the boy would choose cruelty over compassion. Each test revealed the same result. Beneath the growing legendary power, Goku's heart remained pure. He refused to strike a fallen opponent, showed genuine concern for Jackie Chun's well-being, and even held back his strength to ensure their match remained competitive rather than becoming a one-sided destruction. But it was during the final exchange that Roshi discovered just how dangerous the boy's benevolent nature could become. Attempting to push Goku to his limits, Roshi unleashed his strongest Kamehameha wave, putting genuine effort behind the technique for the first time in decades. The attack was powerful enough to level a city block, and any normal martial artist would have been vaporized instantly. Goku's response was to smile and release his own Kamehameha wave, matching Roshi's power exactly. Not overwhelming it, not trying to prove superiority, simply matching it with the precise control needed to create a perfect stalemate. The two energy beams met in the center of the ring and held there, neither advancing nor retreating, while the very air around them began to ionize from the sustained energy release. But Roshi's trained senses detected something terrifying in Goku's perfect control. The boy wasn't struggling to match the ancient master's power, he was consciously suppressing his own energy to avoid accidentally overwhelming his opponent. The legendary force within him was so vast that creating a stalemate required more effort than simply destroying everything in sight. "My word," Roshi whispered, his voice lost in the roar of clashing energy waves. The boy could have ended this at any moment. He's been holding back this entire time. The realization struck Roshi like a physical blow. This child, this innocent boy with his pure heart and genuine desire to help others, was carrying power that could potentially destroy not just the tournament but the entire planet. And more frightening still, he was using that cosmic-level strength to be gentle. The match ended when Goku, concerned that their energy clash might damage the arena and hurt spectators, deliberately allowed his Kamehameha to weaken just enough for Roshi's technique to push through. The victory went to Jackie Chun, but both fighters knew the truth. Goku had chosen to lose rather than risk harming others with his full power. As the tournament concluded and the crowd dispersed, Roshi approached Goku with a mixture of awe and terror that he struggled to hide behind his usual jovial demeanor. "That was quite a match, young man," Roshi said carefully. "Tell me, have you ever considered the full extent of your capabilities?" Goku's expression grew troubled, and for a moment he looked far older than his 9 years. "Grandpa Gohan says I should never use my full strength unless someone's life depends on it. He says I might accidentally hurt people." "Your grandfather is a wise man," Roshi agreed. "But perhaps it's time you learned from someone who has more experience with unusual power levels." The offer was carefully phrased, but both Goku and Grandpa Gohan understood its significance. Master Roshi was volunteering to help train a boy whose strength potentially exceeded that of gods. It was an offer born not from ambition but from necessity. Someone needed to help guide this legendary power toward protection rather than destruction, and there were very few beings on Earth qualified for such a task. "I would be honored to train under the great Master Roshi," Goku said with the formal politeness Gohan had taught him. "But I should warn you, sometimes things happen when I get excited or angry. Bad things." Roshi nodded solemnly. "I understand, my boy, and perhaps together we can ensure that your excitement leads to protection rather than destruction." As they left the tournament grounds, none of them could have imagined that their greatest challenges were yet to come. The Red Ribbon Army's scientists had been monitoring the tournament, and the energy readings they had detected during Goku's matches defied every law of physics they understood. In his private laboratory, Dr. Jiro was already beginning work on androids specifically designed to absorb and analyze legendary-level Kai signatures. But more immediately, the legendary power within Goku was growing stronger as he matured. Each day brought new challenges as his emotions became more complex and his understanding of the world's injustices deepened. The pure heart that had once been his greatest protection was beginning to feel rage at the suffering he witnessed, and that rage was awakening something ancient and terrible within his Saiyan blood. The tournament had been a test of Goku's control, but it had also been an advertisement of his capabilities to every power-hungry organization on Earth. The Red Ribbon Army, the Crane School, and dozens of other factions were now aware that a being of godlike power was walking among them, and each would respond according to their nature. Some would seek to control him, others would attempt to study him, and a few, understanding the true implications of legendary power, would try to destroy him before he could destroy the world. But perhaps most dangerous of all were those who would try to convince him that his power gave him the right to rule, to reshape the world according to his vision of justice. The legendary energy flowing through his veins carried with it the memories and instincts of previous legendary warriors, and their whispered suggestions of conquest and domination grew stronger with each passing day. As Goku returned to Mount Paozu to begin training under Master Roshi's guidance, he carried with him not just the lessons of the tournament but the growing awareness that his very existence represented a choice between salvation and damnation for the entire world. The legendary power that could protect everything was the same force that could destroy everything, and the decision of which path to follow rested entirely in the hands of a 9-year-old boy who just wanted to be strong enough to help his friends. The stage was set for the next phase of Goku's journey, one that would test not just his control over legendary power, but his ability to maintain his pure heart in the face of cosmic-level temptation. The Red Ribbon Army was mobilizing their forces. Master Roshi was preparing training regimens designed for godlike students. And deep within Goku's subconscious, the legendary warrior of ancient prophecy was beginning to stir with dreams of green-haired destruction and universal domination. The years following the World Martial Arts Tournament had been a period of relative peace for Goku, though relative was a term that required significant adjustment when applied to someone whose casual training sessions could alter weather patterns across 3 continents. Under Master Roshi's careful guidance, supplemented by Grandpa Gohan's wisdom about emotional control, Goku had learned to channel his legendary power with increasing precision. But that carefully maintained balance was about to be shattered by the arrival of someone who knew exactly what Goku truly was. High above Earth's atmosphere, a spherical space pod cut through the void with mechanical precision, its occupants' scouter displaying readings that defied belief. Raditz, elite Saiyan warrior and survivor of planet Vegeta's destruction, had spent years tracking the energy signature that had haunted Frieza's nightmares. The legendary power that had prompted the destruction of their homeworld was here, on this primitive backwater planet, and according to his readings, it had grown exponentially stronger. "Impossible," Raditz muttered, adjusting his scouter for the 100th time during his approach. "The readings are even higher than the ancient texts described. How has he learned to control power like this?" The space pod's landing sent shockwaves through the Earth's crust that registered on seismographs worldwide, but its occupants' emergence created disturbances that transcended mere physical detection. Every martial artist on the planet suddenly felt a chill of primal fear as Raditz's Saiyan aura interacted with the legendary energy that permeated the atmosphere around Goku's training grounds. At the Kame House, Master Roshi was in the middle of instructing Goku in advanced Kai suppression techniques when every piece of equipment in the building began malfunctioning simultaneously. The ancient master's expression grew grave as he recognized the signs of Saiyan energy, aggressive, militaristic, and carrying the distinct signature of someone trained for planetary conquest. "Goku," Roshi said quietly, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by the serious bearing of someone who had lived through multiple world-threatening crises, "I believe your past has finally caught up with you." Goku's head snapped up, his pure black eyes suddenly gaining flecks of green that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Something's coming," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the ocean waves around Kame Island retreat from the shore. "Something that knows what I am." The legendary power within him was responding to the approaching Saiyan presence with an eagerness that terrified him. For years, he had wondered about his origins, about the strange dreams of green light and universal destruction that plagued his sleep. Now, with another of his kind approaching, those dreams were becoming more vivid, more insistent, and more focused on the idea that isolation and restraint were weaknesses to be abandoned. Raditz's initial scan of the island revealed power levels that made his scouter repeatedly malfunction, but what disturbed him more than the raw numbers was the nature of the energy itself. The legendary power he was detecting wasn't the savage, uncontrolled force described in Saiyan archives. Instead, it felt refined, disciplined, and most unsettling of all, intentionally suppressed. "Kakarot," Raditz called out as his boots touched the sand of Kame Beach, his voice carrying across the water with unnatural clarity. "I know you're here. I can feel your power signature from orbit." The response came not in words but in a pressure wave that flattened the ocean for kilometers around the island and sent every bird within a 100-mile radius fleeing in terror. Goku emerged from the Kame house moving with the fluid grace of someone who had spent years learning to control cosmic-level power, but his usual cheerful demeanor was notably absent. "You're like me," Goku observed, his enhanced senses analyzing Raditz's energy signature with frightening precision. "Same kind of power, same hunger for battle, but yours feels empty." "Hollow?" Raditz's confidence wavered as he truly looked at his younger brother for the first time. The boy, no young man now, standing before him radiated an aura of controlled devastation that made every Saiyan instinct scream warnings about challenging something vastly superior. This wasn't the savage, legendary warrior of prophecy. This was something far more dangerous, a legendary Saiyan who had learned wisdom. "Kakarot," Raditz began, his planned speech about Saiyan pride and galactic conquest suddenly seeming inadequate. "Do you know what you are? Do you understand the power flowing through your veins?" "I know I'm dangerous," Goku replied, his voice carrying the weight of years spent learning to contain apocalyptic strength. "I know that when I dream, sometimes entire star systems die in green fire. I know that the voice in my head whispers about tearing down civilizations and proving that only strength deserves to survive." The admission struck Raditz like a physical blow. This was indeed the legendary Super Saiyan, but one who had developed a conscience, perhaps the most terrifying combination imaginable. "Then you know why I'm here," Raditz said, though his original mission parameters were crumbling in the face of what he had discovered. He had come to recruit a legendary warrior for Frieza's destruction. Instead, he had found someone who might be capable of destroying Frieza himself if properly motivated. "You're here because someone sent you," Goku observed, his legendary intuition reading Raditz's emotional state with disturbing accuracy. "Someone who's afraid of what I might become. Someone who destroyed our home planet because they knew I existed." The conversation was interrupted by Master Roshi's emergence from the Kame house, his ancient eyes taking in the scene with the wisdom of someone who had witnessed the rise and fall of multiple civilizations. "Ah," Roshi said with deceptive calm, "I take it this gentleman is responsible for Goku's unique heritage." Raditz's scouter immediately locked onto the old master and displayed readings that made no sense. The elderly human's power level appeared minimal, but something about his energy signature suggested depths of strength that defied measurement. "Stay out of this, old man," Raditz warned, though his attention remained focused on Goku. "This is Saiyan business." "Everything involving my student is my business," Roshi replied, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to dealing with cosmic-level threats. "And I suspect that whatever brought you here poses a danger to far more than just our family." Goku stepped between them, his legendary aura creating visible distortions in the air around him. "Tell me about Frieza," he said, the name emerging from racial memories buried in his Saiyan DNA. "Tell me about why our planet died." The demand wasn't made in anger, but the legendary power behind it was impossible to ignore. Raditz found himself compelled to speak, not through force, but through the overwhelming presence of someone whose strength transcended normal concepts of authority. "Planet Vegeta was destroyed because of you," Raditz admitted, the words tumbling out under the pressure of legendary compulsion. "Frieza detected the energy signatures of your birth, identified you as the legendary Super Saiyan of prophecy, and eliminated our entire race to prevent your maturation." The revelation struck Goku with the force of planetary collision. His legendary power, which he had spent years learning to control, suddenly spiked beyond all previous measurements. The ocean around Kame Island began to boil, the sky darkened as his aura interfered with atmospheric processes, and deep within the Earth's crust, tectonic plates shifted in response to the gravitational anomalies his emotions were creating. "Goku," Master Roshi said urgently, recognizing the signs of legendary power on the verge of complete release, "remember your training, remember why you learned control." But for the first time in years, Goku's pure heart was experiencing genuine hatred. Not the righteous anger that had driven him to protect the innocent, but the deep, soul-burning rage of someone who had discovered that his very existence had doomed billions of innocent people. "My people died because I was born," Goku said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to originate from the quantum level of reality itself. "Children, families, entire civilizations, all destroyed because someone was afraid of what I might become." The legendary power within him seized upon this rage, offering visions of revenge that would make Frieza's destruction of planet Vegeta seem like a minor inconvenience. Goku saw himself transformed into a being of pure destructive force, carving a path of green fire through Frieza's empire until every world that had ever served the galactic tyrant was reduced to cosmic dust. "Yes," hissed a voice that seemed to emerge from his own subconscious but carried the weight of ancient malevolence. "Let the rage flow through you. Become what you were always meant to be. Show them why they were right to fear the legend." But even as the legendary power surged toward critical mass, Goku's years of training under Grandpa Gohan and Master Roshi provided an anchor of wisdom. The innocent people of Earth didn't deserve to suffer because he had lost control of his emotions. The friends who had helped him learn to be human rather than monster shouldn't pay the price for his moment of weakness. With tremendous effort, Goku forced his legendary power back under control, though the process left him visibly shaking and the surrounding environment permanently altered. Where his aura had touched the water, strange new forms of marine life were already beginning to emerge, creatures adapted to existence in high-energy fields that would have been lethal to normal organisms. "I won't let his fear define what I become," Goku said finally, his voice returning to normal human ranges but carrying an undertone of absolute determination. "If Frieza destroyed my people because he was afraid of legendary power, then I'll show him what he should really be afraid of, a legendary warrior who chooses to protect rather than destroy." Raditz stared at his younger brother in amazement and terror. The raw power that had just been unleashed and then voluntarily restrained was beyond anything described in Saiyan military databases. But more disturbing was Goku's apparent intention to use that power against Frieza himself. "Kakarot," Raditz said desperately, "you don't understand what you're suggesting. Frieza's power is beyond imagination. He destroyed our planet with a single attack. No individual warrior, regardless of strength, can stand against him." "Then maybe it's time he learned what happens when legendary power is guided by wisdom instead of rage," Goku replied. "You came here to recruit me for his service, didn't you? Instead, I think you should help me understand what we're really dealing with." The conversation that followed would reshape both brothers' understanding of their place in the cosmic order. Raditz revealed the true scope of Frieza's empire, the systematic destruction of species that posed potential threats, and the constant fear that drove the galactic tyrant's policies. But he also described something else: rumors of other survivors, scattered Saiyans who had escaped the planet's destruction and were now living as refugees or mercenaries throughout the galaxy. "Vegeta," Raditz said, his voice carrying a mixture of respect and fear, "the prince of all Saiyans. His power is second only to yours and his pride demands vengeance for our people's destruction. If you could somehow make contact with him." "Two legendary-class warriors working together," Master Roshi mused, his ancient mind already calculating possibilities. That might indeed be enough to challenge Frieza's empire. But it would also represent a threat to universal stability that could make the legendary warrior prophecy seem like a minor concern. Goku nodded thoughtfully, understanding the implications. His power alone was sufficient to threaten entire star systems. Combined with another Saiyan of comparable strength, their alliance could potentially reshape the galactic order for better or worse, depending on their choices. First, Goku decided, I need to complete my training here on Earth. If I'm going to face Frieza, I need to understand my legendary power completely, not just suppress it. And I need to ensure that Earth is protected while I'm gone. The decision marked a turning point in Goku's development. For years, he had focused on containing his strength to avoid accidentally harming others. Now, he was preparing to unleash that same power intentionally in service of a cause greater than personal safety. The legendary warrior was finally accepting his cosmic responsibilities. But as Raditz prepared to depart with promises to locate Prince Vegeta and other Saiyan survivors, neither brother could have anticipated the chain of events their meeting had set in motion. Frieza's deep space monitoring networks had detected the energy fluctuations from their encounter, and the galactic tyrant was already dispatching his elite forces to investigate. More immediately, the display of legendary power had awakened something else, other cosmic entities who monitored universal threats. The Kais, the gods of destruction, and even beings from parallel dimensions were beginning to take notice of the energy signature that defied every law of physics they understood. Earth, once an insignificant backwater planet, was about to become the center of attention for forces that operated on scales beyond mortal comprehension. And at the center of it all was a young man whose pure heart housed power that could either save or destroy everything he had ever known. As Raditz's space pod disappeared into the star-filled void, carrying news of the legendary warriors awakening to Prince Vegeta and the scattered Saiyan survivors, Goku began preparing for challenges that would test not just his strength, but his ability to remain human while wielding the power of gods. The legendary transformation was no longer a distant possibility, it was an inevitable part of his destiny. The only question was whether that transformation would create a protector or a destroyer, and the answer would determine the fate of countless worlds across multiple galaxies. Master Roshi watched his student contemplate the cosmic responsibilities that lay ahead and felt a mixture of pride and terror. The boy he had trained to suppress his power was preparing to embrace it fully, and the consequences of that decision would echo throughout the universe for generations to come. The age of the legendary Super Saiyan had begun, and reality itself would never be the same. The cosmos had been holding its breath for 3 years, waiting to see whether the legendary power awakening on Earth would become salvation or damnation for all existence. That wait was about to end in the most spectacular fashion imaginable, as forces beyond mortal comprehension converged on a small blue planet that had become the epicenter of universal destiny. Prince Vegeta's arrival was heralded not by the subtle energy signatures that had marked previous encounters, but by gravitational anomalies that disrupted satellite orbits and caused tidal phenomena across Earth's oceans. His space pod descended through the atmosphere like a falling star, but the energy radiating from within made it clear that this was no ordinary Saiyan warrior seeking conquest. This was desperation wrapped in royal pride, carrying news that would transform Goku's understanding of his place in the cosmic order. The crash site in East City became a crater of fused glass, and from its center emerged a figure that commanded attention through sheer force of presence. Prince Vegeta stood barely over 5 feet tall, but his aura projected the authority of someone accustomed to ruling entire star systems. His Saiyan battle armor was scorched and damaged, telling the story of desperate battles fought across multiple worlds, and his eyes carried the haunted look of someone who had witnessed the systematic destruction of everything he had once considered permanent. "Where is he?" Vegeta demanded, his voice carrying across the city with unnatural clarity. "Where is the legendary warrior who thinks he can challenge Frieza's empire?" The response came not in words, but in a pressure wave that flattened every building within a 2-kilometer radius and created a perfectly circular zone of absolute silence. Goku emerged from the devastation moving with liquid grace, his power no longer suppressed but flowing freely through carefully constructed channels that prevented accidental destruction. "You must be Vegeta," Goku said, his voice calm despite the cosmic forces swirling around them. "Raditz told me you'd probably come looking for a fight." Vegeta's scouter immediately began displaying readings that defied every law of physics he understood. The legendary power emanating from the younger Saiyan wasn't just high, it was increasing exponentially with each passing moment, as if proximity to another of his kind was awakening dormant aspects of his legendary nature. "So you're Kakarot," Vegeta observed, his royal bearing barely concealing the mixture of awe and terror that Goku's presence inspired. "The legendary warrior whose birth prompted Frieza to destroy our entire civilization. I've spent years imagining what I would say to you when we finally met." "And now," Goku asked, his enhanced senses reading the complex emotional state of the Saiyan prince with disturbing precision. "Now I realize that words are inadequate for what needs to be communicated," Vegeta replied, powering up to his maximum level. "The only language that matters between Saiyans is combat. Show me the legendary power that cost our people their lives." The battle that followed redefined the concept of planetary-scale combat. Vegeta's assault was a masterpiece of tactical precision, combining Royal Saiyan techniques with desperate innovation born from years of guerrilla warfare against Frieza's forces. But every attack, no matter how skillfully executed, was met by legendary power that operated according to rules beyond normal understanding. Goku didn't simply block or dodge Vegeta's strikes, he absorbed their force and redirected it, creating feedback loops of energy that amplified both fighters' capabilities exponentially. What had begun as a contest between two warriors quickly evolved into something approaching a cosmic phenomenon, with their clashing auras generating gravitational waves that registered on sensors throughout the solar system. "Impressive," Goku acknowledged as he caught one of Vegeta's most devastating attacks barehanded, the energy from the impact vaporizing clouds across 3 continents. "But you're fighting like someone who's been running and hiding for years. Where's the pride Raditz told me about?" The taunt struck deeper than any physical blow. Vegeta's royal heritage demanded that he never back down from any challenge, but years of survival against impossible odds had taught him the bitter lesson that pride was a luxury reserved for those with the power to support it. Against Frieza's empire, even Saiyan pride had proven insufficient. "You want to see Saiyan pride?" Vegeta snarled, his aura exploding outward in a display of raw determination that briefly matched Goku's legendary energy output. "Then witness the power of the Prince of all Saiyans." His transformation into the great ape form should have been impossible without a moon, but Vegeta's desperate innovation had led him to create artificial moonlight through precise Kai manipulation. The massive form that emerged from the energy cocoon was unlike any great ape in Saiyan history, enhanced by years of combat experience and driven by a rage that had been building since the moment Planet Vegeta died. But even the legendary Great Ape transformation paled in comparison to what happened when Goku's legendary power finally responded to a challenge it considered worthy. The green-tinted aura that had haunted his dreams for years suddenly exploded into reality, transforming him into something that existed at the intersection of physical and metaphysical power. The legendary Super Saiyan form was nothing like the golden transformations described in ancient texts. Goku's hair remained black but gained an otherworldly quality that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His muscles expanded to impossible proportions without sacrificing speed or agility, and his eyes blazed with green fire that burned with the intensity of collapsing stars. "This is what you came looking for," Goku said, his voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to originate from multiple dimensions simultaneously. "This is the power that Frieza feared enough to destroy our entire race." The battle between legendary Super Saiyan and Great Ape Prince transcended conventional combat and became something approaching a natural disaster. Their clash created shockwaves that triggered volcanic eruptions on the opposite side of the planet, generated electromagnetic pulses that disrupted technology across multiple star systems, and caused temporal distortions that briefly allowed glimpses into parallel timelines where their fight had different outcomes. But perhaps most terrifying was the gradual realization that both fighters were still holding back. Goku's legendary power was infinite by definition, growing stronger with each moment of genuine challenge, while Vegeta's royal heritage granted him access to techniques that had been forbidden knowledge even among Saiyan elites. "You're not fighting to win," Vegeta observed during a brief pause in their cosmic-scale battle. "You're fighting to test yourself. You could have ended this at any moment." "Could I?" Goku replied, his legendary intuition detecting something in Vegeta's energy signature that suggested hidden depths. "Or are you the one who's been holding back? What aren't you showing me, Prince?" The question prompted Vegeta to make a decision that would reshape both their destinies. Instead of continuing the fight, he allowed his great ape transformation to fade and stood before Goku in his base form, his royal armor destroyed but his pride intact. "You want to know what I'm not showing you?" Vegeta said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "I'm not showing you the real enemy. Frieza isn't just a tyrant with overwhelming power, he's something else entirely. Something that exists beyond normal concepts of strength and weakness." The revelation struck Goku with unexpected force. His legendary power, which had been reveling in the joy of finally facing a worthy opponent, suddenly focused on the implications of Vegeta's words. "Explain," Goku commanded, his legendary authority making the demand impossible to ignore. What followed was a briefing that transformed Goku's understanding of the cosmic forces arrayed against them. Frieza wasn't simply a powerful alien despot. He was a being whose existence operated according to rules that transcended normal physical law. His power wasn't measured in energy levels, but in his ability to impose his will upon reality itself. "I've seen him destroy entire star systems with casual gestures," Vegeta explained, his royal composure barely masking the trauma of those memories. "I've watched him erase civilizations from existence not through violence but through the simple decision that they should no longer exist." "Your legendary power is impressive, but it operates within the boundaries of what's physically possible. Frieza operates beyond those boundaries." The description resonated with something in Goku's racial memories, fragments of knowledge inherited from previous legendary warriors who had faced similar threats. The legendary Super Saiyan wasn't just a transformation. It was an evolutionary response to enemies that couldn't be defeated through conventional means. "Then we'll have to transcend conventional means ourselves," Goku decided, his legendary power beginning to explore possibilities beyond its current limitations. "If Frieza can impose his will upon reality, then we'll learn to impose ours." The training that followed pushed both Saiyans beyond every limit they had previously imagined. Under Goku's guidance, Vegeta learned to tap into aspects of Saiyan heritage that had been suppressed by royal protocol, accessing power sources that connected him directly to the collective strength of their extinct race. Meanwhile, Goku began exploring the deeper levels of legendary transformation, seeking forms that could operate outside normal physical constraints. The breakthrough came during their most intensive training session, when both warriors simultaneously achieved transformations that defied every previous understanding of Saiyan capabilities. Vegeta's evolution into Ascended Super Saiyan wasn't just an increase in power. It was a fundamental restructuring of his relationship with Kai itself, allowing him to channel the spiritual essence of every Saiyan who had ever lived. Goku's corresponding evolution was even more dramatic. The legendary Super Saiyan 2 form that emerged from his training represented power that existed at the intersection of physical and metaphysical reality. His energy signature became multidimensional, operating simultaneously across multiple levels of existence and granting him access to abilities that approached what ancient texts described as divine intervention. But their training was interrupted by the arrival of forces that dwarfed even their newly achieved power levels. Frieza's response to the legendary energy signatures emanating from Earth wasn't the conventional invasion fleet that standard military doctrine would have dictated. Instead, the galactic tyrant had dispatched something far more dangerous, a reality-warping construct designed specifically to contain and neutralize legendary-class threats. The device that materialized in Earth's orbit was less a spaceship than a localized violation of natural law, its presence causing immediate distortions in the fabric of spacetime that made normal physics unreliable within the solar system. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in the minds of every sentient being on the planet, carrying a message that transcended language barriers. Legendary Super Saiyan, the construct announced, its words carrying the authority of someone accustomed to reshaping reality through simple declaration. You will submit to containment protocols immediately, or this star system will be retroactively prevented from existing. The threat wasn't metaphorical. Goku's legendary intuition detected the technological processes already beginning to unweave the quantum foundations of local spacetime, preparing to erase Earth and everything connected to it from the cosmic timeline itself. I don't think so, Goku replied, his legendary Super Saiyan 2 aura expanding to envelope the entire planet in protective energy. If you want to threaten innocent people, you'll have to go through me. The battle that followed operated on scales that rendered conventional description meaningless. The reality-warping construct attacked not just with energy weapons, but with alterations to fundamental constants, changing the speed of light to slow Goku's movements, adjusting gravitational relationships to crush him under impossible forces, and even attempting to retroactively prevent his birth by altering the timeline of planet Vegeta's destruction. But legendary power, by its very nature, existed outside the constraints of normal causality. Each attempt to alter reality around Goku was met by counter-alterations that protected not just him, but the entire Earth from the cosmic-scale warfare taking place in dimensions beyond normal perception. The turning point came when Vegeta achieved his own breakthrough, accessing a level of Saiyan royal authority that allowed him to speak with the voice of their extinct civilization itself. His words carried the weight of an entire species' demand for justice, creating resonances in the fabric of reality that even Frieza's construct couldn't completely suppress. In the name of planet Vegeta, Vegeta declared, his voice carrying the authority of every Saiyan king who had ever ruled. In the name of all the worlds you've destroyed and all the lives you've stolen, I call upon the ancient powers that bind tyrants to face their victims' judgment. The invocation wasn't just symbolic, it was a literal summoning of cosmic forces that existed to maintain balance between order and chaos. The reality-warping construct found itself suddenly constrained by rules older than Frieza's empire, forced to operate within limitations that made it vulnerable to legendary-class assault. Goku's final attack wasn't just a display of overwhelming power. It was a focused expression of everything he had learned about using legendary strength in service of protection rather than destruction. The energy wave that emerged from his hands carried not just his own power but the spiritual essence of every innocent being he had ever sworn to protect, creating a force that operated according to principles of justice rather than mere physics. The construct's destruction sent shockwaves throughout Frieza's empire that registered as both a tactical defeat and an existential threat. For the first time in his career of galactic domination, the tyrant had encountered resistance that operated outside his ability to simply overpower or manipulate. But the victory came at a cost that would reshape Earth's relationship with the broader cosmos. The planet's exposure to legendary-level combat had awakened dormant aspects of its spiritual ecosystem, creating conditions that would attract the attention of beings who operated on scales beyond even Frieza's comprehension. The gods of destruction, the Kais, and entities from parallel dimensions were all beginning to take notice of the energy signatures emanating from what had once been an insignificant backwater world. Earth was no longer isolated from cosmic politics. It was becoming a focal point for forces that could reshape the fundamental nature of existence itself. As Goku and Vegeta stood among the ruins of their battle, both warriors understood that they had crossed a threshold from which there could be no return. They were no longer just powerful individuals seeking to protect their adopted home. They had become cosmic forces whose choices would influence the destiny of entire universes. "What happens now?" Vegeta asked, his royal pride tempered by newfound respect for the legendary warrior who had shown him possibilities beyond mere revenge. "Now we prepare for what comes next," Goku replied, his legendary senses already detecting the approach of entities whose power dwarfed even their newly achieved transformations. "Frieza won't ignore what happened here, and there are others who have been watching from the shadows. The real war is just beginning." The legendary power that had once been contained within the dreams of a single Saiyan child had evolved into something that would reshape the cosmic order itself. The universe was about to learn what happened when infinite power was guided by wisdom, compassion, and an unshakable commitment to protecting the innocent. The age of the universal war had begun, and at its center stood a warrior whose strength was matched only by his pure heart's determination to ensure that legendary power served creation rather than destruction. And there you have it, Goku's journey from reality-breaking baby to cosmic protector. We saw him master infinite power while keeping his pure heart and becoming the universe's guardian. Drop your favorite moment in the comments. Was it baby Goku terrorizing King Vegeta, or that insane final battle against Frieza's reality-warping construct? Subscribe for more what-ifs and suggest the next scenario below. Thanks for watching. Peace out.